Good morning, everyone. In the last class, we are trying to identify the tiles framework here. Before going to discuss with the tiles framework, we identified the internal resource view resolver. So using with internal resource view resolver, we identified the simple example. So we try to load the home page here. So today we are going to work in tiles view resolver. So this is the another implementation class of the view resolver here. So basically, this tiles view resolver, which is going to provided by Apache framework here. So using the jar, we are trying to work with this particular tiles framework here. So how we are adding this particular tiles related jars here. So in the last example, we added, these are the two dependencies we need to add. First one is Apache tiles core and another one tiles JSP. So it's nothing but which is going to provide the tag directories, and these are the main dependencies are available inside this particular chart. Getting the point. So this is we need to add whenever we want to work with the tile related view resolver. So that is called tiles view resolver. Okay, now we added, and in the last class we are getting an exception here. So while running the server, we got an exception here. While running the server, we got an exception here. So to resolve this particular exception, what we need to do? So we need to change this particular tiles configuration here. So observe here, we are getting an exception, something called invalid property definition here. So basically, the property is not defined inside this particular tiles view configure. Now we can expect here, so tiles view resolver. Inside this particular tiles view resolver, we don't have the particular property. Now what I can do? So basically, what I need to do, I need to change this particular configuration information. So where we added the definition information. Basically, this particular definition, which is going to available inside the tiles configure class. Tiles configure class, not the tiles view resolver. So if I'm going to open here, now you can see tiles configure. Inside this particular tree, you can expect here definition here. You can expect here definition here. So now we need to work with this particular tiles configure class. So let me change the particular tiles configure class. So being class tiles configure, and where exactly this particular tiles configure is available, the package we need to copy here. So this is our package. So inside this particular package, the tiles configure is available. Inside this particular tiles configure, the package is available, and I configure this. Okay. So let me save the same example. Now we identified the definition is expecting list of values. So I added list tag. Inside the list tag, I'm using the value tag attribute here. Okay. Let me run the same example one more time. So first we need to stop the server. So we need to see whether we are getting the same exception or not. Observe carefully. So the service, server is running here. We need to understand. So any other exception we are getting, or if we are not getting any other exception. So now you can see. So this is the header section, and this is the footer section, and this is our home page here. Getting the point. So using this particular files configure, now what we are doing here, we are trying to work with the header section and the footer section as well as the body here. So the body we are going to change here. So based on our requirement, the body we are going to change it. Getting the point. So before going to run, now what we need to do, so I need to check with the airline dot employee. So any data we are having inside this particular employee? Yes. So we are having employee data. So now what we are going to do, using this particular data, we'll try to connect with our application. Okay. So what we can do, while loading this particular application, we need to show some data here. Right. Now carefully observe. So previously the example we already identified. The same example I'm going to use here. So here we are working with the home controller. Inside this particular code, so what we identified, here I want to copy this section here. So employee DAO, service IMPL, these are the main section I want to use. Okay, inside this particular MVC package. Now you can see we are having employee name, department, role, and employee DAO and employee DAO MPL. Okay, service and service IMPL. The previous example I am trying to use here. So here we are working with transactional annotation. Okay, so anyway, we'll use the same here. Now, so what I want to do, so directly we can work with the annotation example. Again, we don't want to work with the XML configuration here. So to work on this particular annotation, first what we need to do, okay, I want to make here, okay, let's see, already auto-word annotation is already implemented here. We don't want to use. So where we implemented this particular auto-word, okay. On the setter method, we already implemented auto-word here. Now, what I want to do, service transaction will use the same here. Okay. Let me open employee service. Here what I want to do, I want to load all the records. To load all the records, so we need to use the list of employees here. Okay, so simply we'll try to implement this particular method here. Go to service IMPL. And inside this particular DO also, load all employees. This is our method. Okay. First here, with the help of this particular DO, I'm going to call load all employees, and inside this particular employee DO MPL unimplement method. Here, now what I will do, we are working with our session factory. Session factory, okay. So instead of adding multiple times here, what we can do, get session. Session factory dot open session. Get session dot we want to load all objects here. So to load all objects, what we can do, load and get method we cannot use. We'll see find method. Here from employee. And I want to convert into list type. Cutting the point. So using we are going to load. Okay. Now back to here our controller class. So what I am doing here, inside this particular controller class, I want to use employee service. Let me make here auto void annotation. Here what I will do, I will try to add model and view objects here. So model and view. Okay. And using this particular model and view, what I am doing here, with the help of this particular add object. So here employee records. Employee list here. Using this particular service, now what I am going to do, I will call load all employees. Getting the point. And here, now what I want to do, I want to return this particular I want to set home and let me change here model and view. Observe carefully. Now change the logic here. So now what I'm doing here, whenever the initial request we are getting here, now what I'm doing here, with the help of this particular service, I'm trying to load all the records here. Getting the point. So this is very important here. Initially only we are trying to load all the information here. So carefully observe. After loading here, now what I am going to do, with the help of this particular employee list, what I will do, I will try to add into this particular home.jsp. So this is our home.jsp. So instead of returning this particular welcome to Spring MVC, now we will try to add more information here. So once the example is completed, we'll see the flow of execution. So how exactly which is going to work. So let me write the code first. Okay. So back to here. Now what I am going to do? So we need to define some code here. Getting the point. So to define this particular code, first what I need to do, I want to add tag libs here. What are the tag libs we need here? First one, JSTL tag libs we need, and later Spring related tag libs and Apache tiles related. Okay. Now I want to add 3 tag libs here. Tag lib here. Prefix C I want to use. So which is going to use JSTL tag library. I'm going to use as a C and URI. So this URI is very important. Using this particular URI only, we'll try to load the JSTL or Spring or Apache related tag library. We'll try to load here. And here we need to specify http colon / java sun.com / JSP -code, JSTL -code. Let me save. Any error we are going to see. Yes, we are getting an error here. Okay, here we are having wrong URI. Okay, so this is the one of the tag library we are using. So JSTL and for Spring related, I am going to use as a S here. So here the HTTP we need to change here. Okay, let me change here. http colon / www.springframework springframework.org. So you can see whenever we are trying to do this particular tag library here, the URL we are going to have different here. So these are the tags here. So this is for Spring related. Let me save. Whenever we are trying to save the example, so we'll see an error here. If you miss something, whether the dependency or the proper syntax if you are not followed, we are going to get an error here. And here I want to use Apache related tag library. For this tiles, so I'm using as a T here. And let me change this particular URI. So http colon / tiles.apache.org / tags -tiles. So these are the 3 libraries we are going to use. These are the 3 libraries we are going to use. Okay. So here header I want to make as a Spring MVC application, and inside the body, now what I am doing is, so inside the body we need to provide the information here. So now what I want to do, I want to make here something OL tag. So inside this particular OL tag, so this is a CSS class I want to add something employee list. Getting the point. So inside this particular OL tag, now what I'm doing here, I want to work with so C colon for each. So why I'm using this particular C colon for each? Because we are going to get multiple records here. Here we are going to get multiple records. So now what I will do, with the help of this particular for each, we'll try to iterate one by one. Getting the point. Here I want to make variable name something called employee and I want to make items here. This particular items we are going to load from the dollar. Here we need to specify the information what we are trying to return from the our controller class. So now you can see, so this is I am trying to set employee list. So go to the home.jsp. Here I want to add. Getting the point. So now what I am doing here, using this particular loop, I am trying to load in one object here. Okay. So here, what we can do. So first what we are going to do, we'll try to print the object here. So to print the object here, so here, so HTML table I want to use. So these are the, okay. Let me use. Inside this particular, so T header, TR, and so TV. Here, what we can specify here. Let me out from Google HTML table. Just for understanding, I want to copy column 2. What is the syntax? Table, we provide the table and TR, TD. Boy. Okay. So here I want to make, basically this is a image I think. Okay, let me copy this. First we need to use TD. And here we need to work with so TH. To work with this particular TH, now what I want to do, I want to open employee ID. So oh good. So good. We need to create outside here. Okay, first. So we'll see like how it's going to work here, and later we'll try to change the logic here. So first we need to understand here how this particular table is showing here. This is important first. Table name and so employee ID. Employee ID. So department. And finally role here. Okay, so these are the headers here. So once we create a header, now we'll see. So this section is defined header, and now we can observe they open the one more tier, define the TD here. Getting the so here now what we need to do. So this section TR is closed. Where this particular TR is closed here. First we need to close TR and inside this particular tier, we need to work with the TD. Okay, so this particular TD, now what we are going to do, so we'll try to provide with this particular here we want to show this particular value can define employee dot get ID employee dot get name. So we'll see whether we are going to get object or not, and get EMP ID. So finally, department. Last one, role. Getting the point. So this is the way we can define the table and so TR, TH is we also told here, TR and TD we created here. Okay, so these are about the our header section, and here what we am doing here, whenever we are trying to call this particular slash request here, internally we are going to call this particular service and we'll try to load this particular all employee records here. Observe here, which is going to call employee service IMP. So from the employee service, with the help of this particular employee DUO, what we are doing here, we are trying to call employer DUO IMP. Internally, what we are doing here, with the help of this particular session, we are calling the method called find, and we'll try to load all the employee records here. Right. So this is all about the simple example here. But now what we need to do? So we need to enable the configuration which we added previously. So where is our spring-solid.xml? Here, what we can do, this particular transaction we need to enable from the transaction up to this, and what we are doing here, transaction template. So I think so these are the enough here MVC annotation. So we need to check with the package com.javatechnology.mvc. Yes, correct. And we are working with the transaction manager, employee service. But here the package we changed differently. We need to work with we need to change the package here. So we need to use this package and employee DO transaction template. I think we are working with the annotation example. We don't want to use this particular transaction template. Okay. So Hibernate 3 will use the same local session factory bean, HBM file, employee HBM file. Okay, we need to copy this particular employee HBM files also. What else? And Hibernate properties. So driver, manager, data source, and everything we are going to use the same thing. Okay. Only we need to copy the particular source directory employee.html file. Here, inside this particular resource, I want to add. Okay, so we added employee HBM file. So let's see, we'll try to run the same example. First, we need to start the server. Yeah, the server is stopped here. So anything we miss, so we are going to get an exception. With the help of this particular exception, we try to resolve those errors here. But here we need to understand how I'm trying to resolving this particular error is very important here. Okay, we are getting an exception. So what is the exception we need to understand first? So here, Hypernet, they provided the package is different here. Getting the point? The package is different. So where this particular package is provided, so inside this particular maybe HBM condition. So let me open this employee.hbm.employee. So here we don't want to use this particular string underscore Hibernate here. What is the package we are having? MVC. Because this particular employee is available inside this particular package. Okay. Let me run one more time. So if you want to understand here, now you can see employee class is available inside the com.javatechnology.mvc. So com.javatechnology.mvc. Getting the point. So we need to provide the save package. So I'm trying to run one more time here. Because we copied the information, the same example which we used in the previous example. So there we configured the different package name. So because of this we got an exception. But now we need to understand here, so what kind of exception we are going to get now. So now you can see the select query is generated here. Oh, the table is generating here, but only the difference is object is not loading here. Okay, so I expected here something, but we defined. Okay, so we are having 4 objects. The loop is repeated 4 times, but only the problem here. So we are expecting the database information, but here we did not get the database information here. So what we missed here, the configuration, in the home.jsp, we provided wrong information here. The header we provided correct only, and we need to use only one time. And the TD, what we used here, so this is wrong here. Okay, so how we can print this information here? How we can print this particular information here? So this is important here. So basically, I'm using the var here, employee. So with the help of this particular var only, we are going to print here. Maybe I want to use any dollar symbol. Let me go for the header. Form action. Okay, so here we missed the dollar here. Let me add dollar here. So we'll see one more time. But the problem here, so inside this particular TR only we want to repeat the loop. Let me copy here. No endo tag. Okay. I'm trying to run one more time the same example. So what happens here? Table is not closed. So multiple annotation found with invocation tag table. Hmm. So TR is closed here, and this TR is closed here. Invalid location of tag table here. Okay. So it's right here outside of this.
So the for each is should be above the TR.
About here. No endo tag. Multiple annotation found. No start tag of OS.
The TR should come under the for each.
This here come under the for each. Okay. So if I'm going to change here, mm, okay. So we'll comment this line. Maybe I think so. This will work. Okay. Let me run the same example. Okay. Select query generated. Yes. Now you can see the data is defined like printing here. Okay. But only the problem here. So we need to make some alignment here. So whatever the data we are expecting here, the data is printing here. So department role, employee ID, employee name and employee ID. So everything is printing. So with the help of this particular database, but so we need to make some alignment. So we are not going to make some alignment here. But here, now what I am doing here, with the help of this, here what I will do, I am going to make some action button here. So here I am going to make some anchor button so that we can click on this. Again, we are going to send in a request here. Getting the point. So this is important here. So how we are going to work with this particular example here. Right. Now what I will do, so to work with this kind of example, first again we need to go to this particular section called table section, and here so I want to make here URL here. Inside this particular C colon for each, I want to make S colon URL. So now you can see this is we are working with the Spring Framework tag library. So we identified for Spring Framework tag library we are using as a S here. So S colon URL. So value we need to specify. So what is the value we can specify? So as of now we don't have a tag. I want to make here employee and here I want to make random value. The random value is nothing but I want to make here something called employee ID. Employee ID I want to make it. Okay, so this is the URL we are specifying here, and I want to make this particular URL variable name, something called employee ID underscore URL. The variable we are making employee underscore URL here. So inside this particular URL, now what I want to do, I want to make one param name, because here we are making this particular employee ID. So I want to pass this particular value. So how we can pass this particular value? So to pass this particular value, now what I am doing here, S colon param name. What is the name of the parent? Here we need to pass this particular, the name of the parent, employee ID. And later we need to work with the value. So we need to work with the value. So to work with the value, what we can do, here we need to copy. Getting the point. So now what you are understanding here, so this particular entire section, we can use or not. Getting the point. So this particular entire section we can use here. Okay, now what we can do, the URL we are creating it, and I want to change this particular param information. So the param we want to work with the same. So inside this particular value, now what I want to do, I want to add this particular, let me change here. This section, here I want to make. So let me make it. Okay. So we need to refresh one time, like how this particular data is printing. Let me refresh here. Okay, we are getting an error here. So basically, this error related to tiles cannot render exception. Okay, line number 13, form here. So we'll try to start one more time. Basically, Apache related example exception we are getting here, not example. Let me start one more time. So we need to see whether this particular URL is working or not. So as of now, we did not implemented the code, but just for checking here whether the URL is working fine. Now we can implement the code with the help of this particular user ID. Again, we can load the data. Nested solid exception request here cannot render an exception. And number 13. What happening internally? Unexpected processing here. Service home.js tag must be a parent tag must be a descendant tag of the support parameter. Okay. So basically, param related exceptions are getting here. So issue with this particular tag. Parent tag you are getting it. This tag you are open. Parent closed here. Okay. So what I will do, inside this particular TV, can we make any? No. So we use sale. Let me refresh the application. Okay. So we are loading here. But so this section will not work. Okay. So basically, now what we can do, where I define URL also defined here, return name and parameter I am loading. And later, what we can do, here I want to make anchor tag here. So can we make anchor tag here? TV. So let me try with here whether this particular anchor tag is going to work or not. Here I want to add the URL variable. So what we provided this. So dollar. Okay. So here I'm making anchor tag here and I want to make this. Let me try here. Yes. So I can, this particular tag is working. Now, whenever I'm trying to click this, we need to see where it is going. So now you can see employee 12. So inside this particular employee, it's going another request here. So this is we are expecting here. Now, I want to provide the more information. So value, we want to provide the value. Basically, the value is coming already. We don't want to provide the value. Employee ID. Employee ID. Okay. Now what we need to do? We need to define the code. So how we can define the code here? Here, inside this particular controller class, there is our controller. Here I want to make one more method. So public. Now I want to update the record here. I want to update the record. So to update the record, first what I need to do? So I want to show the one more JSP page here. So how we can show the another JSP page? Getting the point. So whenever I'm trying to click on this particular anchor button, so again it redirects to the another page. So something called update employee details. So to update the employee details, first what we need to do? We need to load the based on the employer record here, based on this particular ID. we need to load the object information. We can show the on the UI here. So this is we can see. So how we can see those information here. Public, again I want to return model line view, and here we need to specify the parameters. So this section is very important here. Now I'm creating employee list. Here I want to provide employee object here. Here what we can do, so we are having different method here. So get employee. Based on this particular employee ID, we can load. Right. Here what we can do, we need to add this particular parameter here. So to add this particular parameter, now what we need to do? Basically, whenever we are going to click on this particular the anchor request here, so we are going to see the information as a controller information. I want to make a request param. So the request param, what we are passing here. And here we are going to pass as a employee ID, long ID, and I want to make request here. Getting the point. So now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to return to the home page. So I don't want to return the home page. Here, what I want to do, I want to create a one more view page here. So what is the view page I want to create? Something called employee JSP. Employee JSP I want to give as a. So first we will see whether we are getting the data or not. So to understand here, now what I want to do, inside this particular body, I want to return this particular object here, get ID. Right. So we'll see like how this particular application is going to work. Only I'm going to provide employee ID and H1 tag here, employee record. Again, we are trying to load this particular application. Okay, so objects are loading here. Now, what I will do, I will click on this particular 12. Okay. So this particular record is not matching here. Okay. To match here, probably we missed here. Go back to here. Sorry. Let me refresh. Okay. Now, so required long parameter employed is not present. Long parameter. Let me refresh one more time. Mm, okay. So maybe this is coming in JSP pager only. So we need to handle required long parameter employee ID is not present. Okay. So to present here, now what we need to do, employee ID, we are passing here. So employee ID URL, this is expecting to. Basically here we are passing. Okay. Now what I want to do, I want to change this particular information here. Let me try here. Inside this particular anchor task, I want to work with the cout. Cout. So this particular cout value, okay, I want to specify like this. And cout also I added. And value small. So we'll see how it's going to look like here. Let me refresh the page. Now it is working. Okay, required parameter employee ID is not present. So we given the employee ID. Why it is not presenting here? Employee URL. Employee ID. Okay. Let me check with the employer class first. What is the ID we are using? Long only. Let me run one more time here. Okay, so data is loading. Bad request. Long parameter employed is not present. Request to param. Oh. Let me try with this. 404. Okay. So now I want to change it. So let me make the connection. So scripture and this. After MVP, I want to provide as a employee ID. Yes. So basically, this is the query parameter. So we need to pass like employee JSP could not resolve the view name with a string. Employee JSP is not available. Whatever. So basically, because of the query parameter, so this is not working here. Now, what I'm doing here, I want to return, like I want to work with debug as a server. So whenever we're trying to give a request here, so this request is coming line number 23 or not. So we need to see, basically JSP also I created PLO YWJSP. Let me copy the name. Basically the name I think change. Now we are working on the query parameters. So whenever we are trying to working with the query parameters here, we need to add question mark here. So that is I'm missing here. So if I'm going to click here, we cannot get here. Getting the point. But now what I want to do, I want to copy the para name, and now you can see after employee question mark employee ID is equals to 12. So if I'm going to click on this particular, if I'm going to give a request here, now what happens internally? So we need to see the line number 23 is calling or not. Observe here, we are able to see a request here. The request is receiving here. The request is receiving here. Now we can observe ID 12 we are getting there. Because we are working with the query parameter. So because of that I am using request parameter here. Okay. So instead of working with the query parameter, now we can change the logic here. So that is we are going to work little bit later in our upcoming classes here. But now for just understanding here how we can work on this query parameters and providing this. Now we can see one more select query. So one more select query is nothing but so we are having we are trying to load an object here. So if we want to see, now you can see inside this particular model, so we are having linked hash name and the value we are creating here. We are loading an object here. So now we can expect here the ID to well. With the reference of this particular tuple, we are trying to load the object information. But only the problem here, so we don't have this particular JSP file. The particular JSP file we could not find it here. Okay, so this is related to JSP exception here. If I'm going to click on this, we are trying to return the model and view object here. Here we could not find the JSP page. Okay, now what we can do, let me go for this particular project explorer. Rename, copy, so paste it inside this particular home controller. So I want to run one more time. So we'll try to check with the run as server here. Okay, so data is loading. So as of now, whenever we click on this, so we cannot work with the REST API, now what we created inside the controller class. So we'll see whenever we click on this particular the anchor tag, we need to go to the our application and we return the data here. But as of now, so we are not working with the same example. So I'm trying to work with the query parameter. So we are having the different parameters here. So we'll try to check with the one by one parameters here. So in that case only we are working with the query parameter. Now observe, let's see whether we are going to get the JSP page or not. No, the JSP is not loading here. So we try to change here and apply only. Maybe why it is not showing this. So we'll try one more time. Still it is not loading. Could not resolve the view name with the employee. So what happened here? So we created, okay, sorry. I forget to add. Basically, we need to add here. I want to work with the employee here. And so inside this particular files, we want to create a one more template, one more definition here. So this is very important here. So this is we need to add here. So I forgot to add these two sections here, employee and the same employee I added. So we'll observe whether it's going to work or not. Okay, let me refresh the application, rerun the application. So refresh is not working here. Nested exception cannot run up the exception main template. So what is error we are getting? Employee not found. Okay. The employee is not found in here. Go to the main template. Make ignore true. Let me refresh here. Okay. So data is stored. Now what I want to do, I want to click here. So again we are getting okay, home not found. Okay. So home not found. Home also we need to make ignore false. Yes. Only ID we are printing. The particular ID we are loading here. So this is the, so now you can see header section is printing. So employee record we added, employer ID we printing, and photo section. So if I want to print some more information, now what we can do? Here we need to copy this. So to copy this, so instead of working this, so we need only two information. These are the fine. Let me refresh the application. So now you can see ID 12 and the name Hibernate. Getting the point. So this is the way we can work with the example here. Okay. So tomorrow we'll try to check with different parameters here. So in that case only we work with the one parameter, query parameter. So whenever we are trying to work with the query parameter, so this is important here. We need to add question mark like this. We need to add question mark like this, and whatever the ID we are passing here. So the ID, now what we need to do, we need to make as a request parameter. So we need to make as a request parameter. And inside this particular employee ID, so the value we are going to assign into this particular ID. Getting the point. So this is the way we can load the query parameter related example. So we'll have a different parameters. So those parameters we are going to discuss in our upcoming classes. And same way, so today we identified loading the employee record. And now in our tomorrow class, we'll check with the login example and registration example using this particular Spring MVC here. So any questions regarding our today's session? So the source code, as of now, like I did not created the repository. So I will create the repository and I will let you know. So where we can get this particular source code here. because I need to create for this particular Spring core and I need to create for the Spring MVC. So inside the Spring core, we are identified core module and JDBC and Hibernate module here. So in that MVC, we are checking with the MVC related example. Okay, anyway, so give me some time, like I will create the repositories and I will push the code into the repository. Okay. So any other questions? If you don't have any questions, like we'll continue with the different parameters example.